Hello everyone, and thanks for joining me once again for this new video. This will be a long video, or maybe it will be a series of video. If it is really too long, I don't know yet. And we will build together a full website, a portfolio website. So if you don't have one yet, you will have one by the end of this video. So first, let's have a look at what we will build together. This design is highly inspired by a video from Sonny Sangha. You will find the link in the description. And he built this site using React. Together we will use bricks, Oxyprops of course, and Metabox to create custom field, custom post types, and relationships. Building this site we will cover a lot of things. We will discuss animations. Maybe it's not clearly visible on the video, but all those shapes are slightly moving. We will use a bit of JavaScript to achieve this typewriter effect. Here we have our main navigation. I hope you can see it on the video, but we have custom scroll bars with colors matching our branding. So we'll see how to create those. And this design is built as a kind of slideshow. Each section is a full screen, and we have a snapping effect between screens. If I scroll down, just touch my mouse a little, and the next section snaps into place. So we have this About Us section. Then we have this Work Experience section with different cards pulled from a custom post type. And we have two interesting things on these cards. The technology used are pulled from another post type through a relationship between the work experience and the technology used. And those items comes from a clonable group from the custom fields group associated with this work experience custom post type. We are using bricks query loop to pull them from the database, and they are placed in an horizontal scrolling container that also snaps. If I move, the next card snaps in the center, then the next one, then the next one. And once again, we have the matching scroll bar with the brand color. We then have the skills section coming from a custom post type, and when you hover the skills, you can read the proficiency in each skill. Then we have the project section to showcase your project. Once again, it's a custom post type. The skills are pulled from the skills custom post type through a relationship, and each project is full screen width. And here again, we have this snapping scrolling container. Finally, we have the context section, and this form is using bricks form builder styled with Oxyprops. And of course, we are using Oxyprops, so this site is color scheme responsive. We have the light dark toggle on top. If I switch to the light mode, we have the light version of our site. So if that sounds interesting, let's jump into action and start building this site together. And the first thing we will do is create a new site. So I'll be fast, I'm in my terminal. Let's name it Bricks Portfolio. And here is our new site. Let's open the admin. So here we are in our WordPress dashboard. We have Metabox and Metabox AIO, which is the premium version of Metabox that we will use. Oxyprops, of course, and bricks. And I just noticed an update warning. Bricks 1.5.6 was just released a few hours ago. So let's update. Perfect. So just a bit of setup first. I'm in bricks, so the plugin is bricks props. I will activate the global theme. I don't use Gutenberg presets, so I'll remove them. For the colors, I will use the light and dark modes. My canvas color will be set to mauve, which is a slightly orange tinted neutral. that will match my colors for this build. My brand color will be gold. For the light mode, I will use a 200 weight and a 400 for the hover state. For the dark mode, I will use the 85 weight and the 75 for the hover state. We can see that these colors will give us a very good contrast for accessibility. In the light mode, it's not as good, so maybe let's go to 300, 500, 300, and 300 will pass the AA score on surface 1. Okay, I will set the other ones. We'll use much less. Yellow for my, not yellow, I will pick blue for my accent color. And it will be 300, 500 in light mode. 175 in dark mode. I won't use my links and my visited colors, so I will not touch them now. We will see later if we need to come back. Okay, we will come later for the MetaBox custom fields. For now, we will go to bricks and create a template. And this will be my header. And let's edit it with bricks. This will be a header. And let's move the other side. So I will add a section. And my section will have a tag of header. I will give it some block padding. Block padding of 2. And I will also give it a position fixed because I want it to stay always on the top of my screen. Here it is. Now our container inside the section. This will be a flex row and we'll have an inline padding of 2. Inside my container, I will first have a block on the left with social icons, and then I will have on the right another block with the link to the contact section and the light and dark toggle. So let's create first the social icons. So I will insert a div and let's rename it to social icons container to be organized. And inside of it, I will have icons. So let's start with 1. And I'll grab from the font of some brands the YouTube icon. And let's create a custom class to style it. It will be c-social. When I build site, I like to prefix my custom class with a C for custom, so I can easily differentiate from the framework ones prefixed with an O. So let's create this class. I want to give it a size of 4. The color will be my text2 with a 60% opacity. Of course, it will be a link, an external link, and let's link to YouTube. And for the relation, as Break suggests, I will set a no opener, no referrer, no follow from my context menu. It's easy, just click on the bundle and you have the 3 of them. And let's make sure that the size is set. I said a size 4. Here it is. Let's duplicate this one. So now we have a second one. And this one will be Facebook, facebook.com. Perfect. I want some spacing between my icons. So let's go back to our social icons container. This one is a flex row with a gap of 4. Perfect. So maybe let's add a last one. For GitHub. Okay, so now let's take care of the other side. I will add a new div. This one will be my contact container. And before I take care of what's inside this container, I want it to be on the right side. So back to my parent container, I will add a flex between class, and this pushes the two elements on both sides. So now in this one, I need one of my icons. So let's duplicate one, drag it in this container. This will be not a brand this time. It will be a mail. This one. I will add some text. So let's wrap this one in a block, in a div. And to this div, let's add a text. This text will be get in touch. I want it to be the same color, so I will style my text with my text to 60%. I'm not creating a custom class because we have only one of this text. Let's make it uppercase. And I want to align them. So my div, which is my contact row, will be a flex row. And now I want the items to be aligned vertically. So for that, I will use the class items center. Okay, this centers my items vertically in the flexbox. And now let's give some spacing. So I will give it a gap of 1. That's perfect. And still in my right side container that I name my contact container, maybe that's not only contact, let's add our Oxyprops light dark toggle, this one. Here it is. Still on the same line, so I want my contact container to be a flex row. I still want the items centered, just to show you that I can call the class either by typing them with my keyboard or through the context menu. Let's add a gap, and I will use the same one as I did here, so I will use a gap of 4. Now let's take care of my toggle. I will give it a size of 4, same size as my icon. I want the icon color to be the same, so it will be my text 2 with a 60% opacity, and I want the hover state be text 2 with no opacity. Let's save, and our header template is now ready. So let's start creating our page, and I'll create a new one. That will be the home page. Okay, so let's go to bricks settings. I want bricks enabled for the page, and while we are here, I want to be able to upload SVGs if I need to. I also want to be able to execute code. And we should be good for now. So back to the pages, my home page. Let's publish it. And edit with bricks. So we are in bricks and our header is automatically pulled from the templates in bricks. So one of the particular aspects of this site is that all the sections are full screen width and height, and that we will use a snap scroll navigation between the sections. So we need a few preparation for that. So the first thing we will do is create the structure for such a layout. And the first thing I will do is to create a div. And this div will be my app container. Everything will be contained in this div. And so my app container will be full width and full height. So let's go to layout and define its width to viewport width full and its height to viewport height full. Okay, so our container is full screen, and whatever the screen, it will always be 100 VW viewport width in width and 100 VH viewport height in height, of course. So what we are doing is we are creating a window which is the size of the screen through which the user, when visiting our site, will see the web page. So let's save. And now we need to set a few things because, of course, our web page will be bigger than the screen. The content of this app container will be bigger. So to tell the browser what to do with this content that will extend over our container dimensions, we need to set the overflow. So on our container, let's add the overflow X of hidden, which means that anything that's extending outside of the container on the sides will be hidden or clipped or cropped. It will not be visible. And now we want to define our overflow Y. And on the Y axis, we want to scroll. And this will make a scroll mandatory. And it's often difficult to style scroll bars on the system. I'm on a Mac, especially on a Mac, because scroll bars are managed by the operating system itself. And where are not active, they are hidden. We cannot see any scroll bar here, even if we have set an overflow Y of scroll that should make the scroll bar mandatory. So we can use a bit of CSS to manage our scroll bar and style it to accommodate our website branding. Just want to tell you that this will be applicable for WebKit-based browsers, which is the big majority of modern browsers. So now what I want to define is my scroll bar. I want it to be visible and I want it to be my brand color. So first, I will add the class scrollbar, simply o-scrollbar, which is the basis for styling the scroll bar. And before we go further, let's add some content so you can see what is happening. I'm at my app container level and I will add a section. I want my section inside my container. Here it is. I will create a custom class. It will simply be c-section for my custom section. And I want it to be the full height of the viewport. And that will be the case for each of the sections on this page. So here we are, 100 VH. For now, let's just add center so my container is centered. And we will just add a dummy content so we can see what's happening. And I will duplicate this section. Okay, back to my app container. So it's not very visible because of bricks highlighting the elements, but my scroll bar, because of this o-scrollbar class, is now visible. Maybe we can have a look at the front end, and it might not be easy to see it on the video, but we have our scroll bar visible, always visible now on the side. By default, it uses the scroll bar color defined in your Oxyprops plugin dashboard, which is your canvas color with a slightly contrasting shade. But in our case, we want to make it our brand color. So let's add another class that will be scrollbar brand, because I want it to be my brand color. You have the choice with your accent color, links color, or visited color. I want it to be my brand. And by hovering the class, you can see that it's turning my brand color on the side. Here we can see it without the highlight. It's my gold color. If I want to make it thicker, to be more visible, we could add the scroll bar thick. And this time I think you see it. Here it is, a thick scroll bar. I don't like it thick, I want it thin, so I will remove this class. So now I have my customized thin scroll bar, and it is visible. The other thing I want to achieve is a scroll snap effect. And to achieve the scroll snap effect, you need two things. You need to tell the container how to behave, and then you need to tell the elements how to behave. So on my app container, I will define a class that is snap, and then I need to give it the direction. So it will be, in my case, a block. Block is the main direction. For me, with the left to right language, it is top down. And then I want to set it to be mandatory. The snapping is mandatory. You have several options, but in this case, I want a snap block mandatory. So that's it for the parent container. This class will do the job for you. And now at my section level, I need to tell it how to behave. So I will tell it to snap in the center. So I need the class o-snap center. I will add the same one to the second section. Let's save and have a look at what it looks like on the front end. I refresh. We are on the front end. We have our brand colored scroll bar, and if I move my mouse, it snaps automatically in place, centered in my viewport. Once again, of course you can't see my finger on the mouse, but it's just a small touch and it snaps in place. Perfect. I hope you can see it on the video, but when I force the movement like this, I just got it. Here you can see a white scroll bar overlapping. That's because of the browser way of handling the scroll with an elastic effect. And as I want to avoid this to happen, I will go back to bricks and I will need to make a kind of little hacky thing. It's not actually hacky, but let's go to custom code, custom CSS. I'll enlarge so you can see what happens. And I will select my body, open and close curly brackets. I drop down, and on my body, I will define a width, like my section, a width of 100 VW, a height of 100 VH, and an overflow of hidden. And this should solve this problem. Let's save. Back to the front end, I will refresh and try it again. If I try to force the movement, this time it works and I don't have this white scroll bar, the system one, overlapping over my custom one. So here we are. We now have the basic structure for our site with full page section and our scroll snap system in place. So it's now time to design something. So let's go back to bricks and start with our hero section. And maybe one last thing before we go further, I want, of course, my page content to be aligned with my header. If you remember, I added an inline padding. I will do the same with my containers. So for now, I will get rid of this section. I don't need it. Let's take this container and give it a padding inline of 2 to match our header. And now we are aligned. So this first section will be our hero section. We will give it an ID of hero. And the first thing I will work on are those shapes, the image and those shapes around. This image and those blob shapes around it. So all these shapes will be absolutely positioned inside my section. And as I want to position things absolutely inside my section, I need the section itself to be position relative. So let's add the relative class. I will insert a div, and this div will be my shapes container. It will be absolutely positioned. It will use all of the available space. So we have a handy class for that, which is inset. And as I want it to extend to all sides, I want an inset of 0. And let's start to create those blob shapes. So a first one. This will be my blob 1. It is absolutely positioned. And it's not centered because on the container I forgot something important. The supercenter class, the class that centers everything. And I will also give it a class of blob. And I want this one to be a blob 1. And back at the ID level, let's give it a width and a height that will be 70 V min. And you will see during this build, we will use a lot of viewport related dimensions. So if you don't know what vmin is the minimum between the viewport width and the viewport height. So on a desktop with the landscape orientation, vmin will be VH, the viewport height. And on a mobile with a portrait orientation, vmin will be the viewport width. So using vmin means that whatever the device used by your visitor, the dimension will be 70% of the minimum device dimension. So I'll use it for the width and for the height. Here is my shape. I will create a custom class of C blob that I will use for styling shared between all the shapes. And this will have a border color. So let's define our borders. Our border width, I link all of them, will be a border 1. The style will be solid. The color will be our surface 3. And we don't need to set the radius, it's set by the blob class. Okay, so of course, because of bricks highlighting the element, we cannot see the border. But let's have a quick look at the front end. And once again, maybe it's difficult to see on the video, but we have our very subtle shape perfectly centered in the section. Now I want my shape to slightly rotate very slowly. So we have a class for the rotation, which is the spin class. And take care if you don't like fast animations, but I will activate it just by hovering, and you see that it's rotating, but it's rotating very fast, much too fast. We want something very subtle. So I will not use the pre-made class, but what I will do, and I will do this at the C-blob level, because this will be shared with other shapes. Go to Custom CSS. I will right click and take the spin snippet. So we have the animation running, but what I will add, and maybe I will enlarge it so we can see an animation dash duration of 240 seconds. And now it's still rotating, but very slowly. Okay, that's it for this shape. Let's take care of the second one. And the second one, you can see it. Of course, it's a different shape. It's also slightly rotating, but in the other direction. But it also has a color, and the color is pulsating. So let's do this. I will start by duplicating my first blob. This will be my blob 2. Let's remove the blob 1 class and add the blob 2. Of course, its dimensions will be different. This one will be 60. I want to give it a specific border color. So my border color will be brand. And I don't want it to be too bright, so I will add an opacity to it of 50%. And now let's go to our custom CSS. And this time, as I want to combine two different animations, I cannot just add classes, because if you add classes, as they both define the animation property of CSS, the second one will always override the first one. So if we want to combine animations, we need to create custom CSS. So I will pass my snippet and we will go through it together. So as I want to combine two animations, I will state my animations names to blink, which is this one. And what it states is that it goes from the current state at 0% to the final state, an opacity of 1. So the current state is opacity of 1. The final state will be opacity of 1. And at 50% of the animation, it goes through an opacity of 0.5. Okay, so that's what this line of code states. Current state, opacity of 1. two final state opacity of 1, and in the middle, an opacity of 0.5. The other one, the spin animation, we know it, that's the one that rotates the shape. So as we want to combine them, we use a comma and we give as a parameter the first name and the second name. And then for the other properties, it's the same. We give two values, the first value for the first animation and the second value for the second one. So I want my blink to be the normal direction, but I want my spin to be a reverse direction, counterclockwise, to be the opposite direction to my first shape. I want my blink animation to have a duration of 2 seconds. I want my spin animation to have a duration of 280 seconds. For both of them, I want a timing function of isOut, but if I wanted to, I could define two different timing functions. And for the iteration count, I want both of them to be infinite. So they loop indefinitely. Okay, so that's what this code means. And if you don't want to write everything from scratch, you can use the Oxyprops right-click menu and get a boilerplate for a CSS snippet to start writing it. Okay, so now our first shape is rotating, the second one is rotating the other way and is blinking. Let's check on the front end because it's not visible here with bricks highlights. Here we are. We have our two shapes, the first one rotating clockwise, the second one rotating counterclockwise and blinking. Back to bricks, so we can accelerate a little. I will duplicate my blob 1 and make it my blob 3. I will change the class to blob 3. And I will change its dimensions to, you guessed it, 50 vmin. My c-blob class gives it the rotation and the color, so that's perfect. Let's create our blob 4, and this one will be 40, and we'll have a shape of blob 4. On this one, I want to invert the rotation. So let's go to our CSS. I will grab anything to have the boilerplate code. And so we want the animation direction to be reverse. And just to make sure it is working, we can set an animation duration to 2 seconds. And it's okay, it's rotating counterclockwise. Let's create our last shape. Our blob 5. This one will be 30 vmin. It will be a blob 5. And this one has a specific animation, so we will remove the c-blob class. So it's not rotating anymore, but this one will expand a bit like an explosion. And we have an animation in the framework for this, which is ping. So I will get O-ping. As I did duplicate my previous shape, I need to make sure that I remove this reverse direction. Okay, so now it works in the proper way. And I will also give it a border. So it will be a size 1 border, solid, with my brand color and a 30% opacity. Let's check. And here we are. We have all of our shapes slowly rotating. And the last one with this ping animation. To finish, let's add your avatar in the center. So still in this container, to make sure everything is perfectly centered, let's add an image. And I will use a placeholder image, but make sure you use the best picture of yourself. And I will take a square placeholder and I'll just try to find one interesting. Here we are. This will be round. So I will use the radius round class and I will give it a width of 30 vmin so it matches my shapes. And so we are done with the decorations of our hero section. By the way, let's just have a look at what it looks like in light mode. Perfect. Back to dark. That's perfect. So now let's take care of our container and our heading. And what I want to do is push my container to the bottom of my section. So at my section level, I will delete this super-centered class I used earlier for my placeholder heading. Now our heading, of course, is on top. It doesn't change anything for our shapes because they are absolutely positioned. And I will make my section a flex column. And inside my flex column, I will, along my main axis, push the elements to the end. So now my container, if I highlight it, is at the bottom. I want to give it a height so it comes just below my picture. If you don't want to make the calculation, I did it for you. So the height is 35 VH. Just at the bottom of the picture. And now I need to position things inside my container. So I want also this one to be, I'm typing, but I could use my panel to have a flex column. Perfect. I want to center the items on the cross axis like that. I want to give it a bit of padding. So I will give it a padding block of 2. Because I will later add other elements, I will give it a gap of 2 for consistent spacing. And now let's pick the heading and let's go to the typography. It will have a color of text to 60% to match my header. It will be uppercase. A font weight of 400, a font size of fluid font 1, and a letter spacing of tracking 6. Let's change the content to something more accurate, like freelance web designer. And as I like attention to details, when you add letter spacing, especially with a big one, like this one, you may notice, if I zoom in, I need my heading selected, let's zoom, and you see that it's not perfectly centered because the browser adds the letter spacing after the character, not before. And at the end, we have a space. So that's not perfectly centered. So to have things perfectly centered, I will add a padding. And my padding will be my var. And I cannot use my context panel because that's not a dimension. That's really my letter spacing value that I want to add. So that's font dash letter spacing dash 6. And this way, I did just add a little padding at the beginning of my text that will compensate for my letter spacing at the end. Let's save. So let's continue with our title and the typewriter effect. And to achieve this, we will use a JavaScript library. And it will be this one, Typewriter JS v2 by Tamim Safi. You will find the link in the description. And you have all the instructions here below. But if you want, just follow along with me. The first thing we need to add is a container that will receive the typewriter. So let's create a div. And this div, we need to give it an ID so it can be targeted by the JavaScript. So let's give it an ID of typewriter. And that's it. Now we need to add to our container a code element. Let's get rid of this dummy content. And the first thing, I'll zoom so it's better for you. The first thing we will add is the link to the library. You can find it here on GitHub. That's the link to the JS file through the CDN. Okay, so this is necessary to load the library. Next, we need to create a script tag. Open and close. And right in the middle, let's drop down. And we will go back to GitHub. And there are several examples. And you can use the basic one. So let's pick this one. Copy. And then I passed this script. The first line is here to target the div we just created. So we will give it the element ID we just defined. In my case, it will be typewriter. In your case, it can be whatever you choose. So this will get the div. Then it creates the app. This parameter tells the script it will loop. And for the delay, you can choose whatever you want. But I will choose natural, that mimics a natural typing. And then you define what happens. So I will just copy paste the one I did prepare. Here it is. So this is just a series of instructions to tell the system what you want. So first I want it to pause for 2.5 seconds. These are milliseconds. Then to type this string. Then to pause again. Then to delete the string. Then to type a new one. Pause, delete, type a new one, pause, and then start. You get the point. So you can play with it. Of course, you can change the string. You can add ones. You can do whatever you want. So we can already have a look, and I will choose execute code. If this doesn't work, you need to set the rights to your user profile to execute code in Brick settings. We did it at the beginning of the video, and we won't see the result in the editor. We have to go to the front end. So let's have a look. Refresh. And of course it doesn't work. So I made a mistake somewhere. Let's see. Yes, I didn't wrap the word natural in quotes. This can be the reason. So okay, just refresh. And now we have our typewriter working. So now let's give it a bit of styling. So it may not feel very natural, but we will go to the div, which is our target. By the way, let's change this to the typewriter container. And we will style the text at the div level. So let's go to our typography. Let's select a color of text 1, a font size fluid 5, and I want bold text. Well, semi-bold, so I will go for a font weight of 600. Let's have a look at the result with these settings. Okay, so it seems bigger. That's perfect. So now one last thing, I would like the cursor, the blinking cursor, to match my brand color. So to achieve this, back to our code, we need to add a bit of styling. So maybe here, right between the two scripts tag, let's insert a style tag. So this is inline CSS. And what we are including in this style tag is that we target this special class. That's a class created by the library. And with this class, we can target the cursor. And I will simply say that on my typewriter cursor, my color, the text color, is my brand color. Let's save, refresh. And now our cursor is the brand color. So as you see, it's quite simple to add this typewriter effect. Now maybe you don't see it very well. Let's zoom a little. We have trouble because our shapes, our blobs, are over the title and the typewriter. We want it to be behind. So let's fix this. I will get my shapes container and I will give my shapes a Z index. So let's make sure I'm on the ID. Here we are. And let's go to layout. In positioning, Z index -1. And as we may expect, everything disappears. So maybe if you watched one of my latest videos, you know how to fix this. Actually, the fix is quite simple. We need to create a new stacking context within our container. So we are interested in the section as a container. So let's come to the section and add the class of isolate. And with this class, our shapes are back. We want to make sure that now the stacking order is correct, that we have our titles, our headings in front of the shapes. So let's make sure this is the case. Let's zoom in. And now that's correct. The blob shapes are behind our text. Perfect. So to finish our hero section, we need to include our navigation. So let's start by adding a container. It will be a div. I want to add it here in my container. And let's use a little semantics. So this will be my nav, but I will give it an HTML tag of nav. Inside my nav, I will have another div, and this will be my menu, and I will give it an HTML tag of menu. You will often see a UL, an unordered list used for menus, but actually there is a specific kind of UL, which is the menu tag, which purpose is precisely to create an unordered list for navigation. So let's use menu as our custom tag. And then inside our menu, we will have other containers, and these containers are list items. This way, our nav will have the correct semantics. And you can see that as soon as I tap li, a bullet point appears. So this will be my li. And let's fix this bullet point by creating a custom class, c-nav-li, for example. And let's go to custom CSS. Let's take anything just to create the boilerplate. And I want a list style type of none. If I spell it correctly, it will be better. And by the way, I will specify a margin of 0 and a padding of 0. And our bullet point is still here because I didn't spell it correctly. We need another hyphen and it's disappeared. Perfect. So now in my list item, I will have a link. So for this, I will use a text, and our first one, we will use it to style our buttons, is about. So let's start styling our button. First, I want it to be a button, so I will use the class btn. I want it to be outline on hover state, but first I will use the class btn outline. I want it to be my brand color, so I will add btn-brand, and I want it to have a pill shape, so I will add the class radius round. This one. Okay, so here we have basic styles, but this button is not yet how I want it to look like. The predefined classes did help me. That's our current button. But now I want it to be uppercase. I want the border to be invisible. And I want to change the font weight. So to achieve this, I will create a custom class that will be my c-btn-tweak. And with this class, I will first adjust my typography. So let's change the color so it matches our header. It will be my text 2. With an opacity of 60%. I want it to be uppercase. I want my font size to be a font size fluid 00. Okay, that's better. I want my font weight to be a normal weight of 400. And I want to add some letter spacing, a tracking of 4. Let's go to our border. I want a border of size 1. I want it to be solid. And I want, on the normal state, the color to be transparent. Okay, let's have a look at our button. Refresh the front end, and here is our button with this glowing effect. But now I would like to add on the hover state the border back to have a better highlight. Select my button, the class, grab the hover state, and on hover, my border will be solid with my brand color. Let's have a look on front end or using the preview mode. Okay. This is a good example where sometimes the preview mode is not reliable because in the builder, we have our border on the normal state. But if we look at what it actually looks like on the front end, when I refresh, I have my button and then the border is there only on the hover state. So that's correct. That's what I wanted to achieve. Last thing for this one, let's give it a link. I will use an external link to make it a hash link within the page. So I use the hash symbol and this one will go to the about section. And now I can duplicate my button. So I need 4 of them. I don't want them to stack vertically. So at my menu level, let's add a flex row. I want to add a gap of 3. I want them to be centered on the main axis. And I also want them to wrap. Let's say this one will be our experience section and links to the experience ID. This one will be our skills section and link to our skills section. And this one will be our projects. And of course, link to the project section. And here is our hero section finished. Perfect. Let's close this one. And now we can add another section. I want it to be inside my app container, remember. And this one will be the about section. And let's change its ID to about. And if you remember, we need to add a few classes to this section, a few classes. We need to give it a full height. I want everything centered in this section. And then we need it to snap at the center. Here is our section. Our section container is a flex column. In my container, I also want things centered. And as I will position things absolutely inside it, let's add the class relative. I will also create a custom section container class, and it will have a width of 100%, and it will have a height of 83 VH. So first let's add a heading to our container. It will be, so this will be our custom section heading. It is positioned absolutely at the top of my section. The color is my 60% text 2. It is uppercase with a font size of font width 1, a font weight of 400, and a letter spacing of 6. And remember, I need to fix this padding if I want things to be aligned. So I will add, to make things simple, let's just copy the value of the letter spacing and paste it in my left padding. Here I am, centering is fixed. And this one is our about section. Here we are. And the reason why I did position absolutely this heading is that I want things to be centered, and it will be much easier with this heading out of the way. So in my container, I will insert a div, and you see now my div is perfectly centered because the heading is out of the way. And my div will be a grid, and I want it an asymmetrical grid. It will be a grid 2, 3. At the medium breakpoint, I want it to stack, so it will be a grid 1. And let's add a gap of 4. We don't see the result yet because there's no element, so let's add some. Insert a div and another div. So they're here. In the first div, let's place an image. And I will use a placeholder image, the portrait orientation. At my div level, let's rename this to grid. So we can feel things a little organized. This is the image container. Okay, so at this level, I will add a class of radius, and I will add a radius of 3. But as you can see, the corners are not cut yet because we need to define the overflow that will be hidden. Okay, that cuts the corners. Now my text container will include a heading and the text. For my text, let's just add a paragraph, a single one. And it will be a font size fluid one. And before I take care of my heading, let's center that. So at the container level, we want a flex column. We want on the main axis things to be centered. And we want a gap. And let's be consistent with a gap of 4. My heading content will be serious and with an ampersand. Fun facts about me. And I want to give some styling to this text. If you are used to Oxygen, you know that you can create spans in a text like this. That's not possible in Bricks, at least not yet, but there's a way. In my content field, I can insert HTML tags. For example, I want a span with a class of O dash underline dash brand. For the word serious, I close the span. And for the word fun, I'll create another span with a class of O dash wavy dash brand. And I close the span. So let's have a look. And it looks like my second span didn't close properly. So let's see why this happened. And that's because there's an S that shouldn't be here. There's always a good reason. And here it is, we have our About section. Let's refresh our front end. Here is our About section. Let's check the navigation works with the smooth scrolling. And now if we want to check, and something's wrong with our header because I think I forgot something important, they are not accessible. And certainly this is because, let's go to our dashboard, to our templates, and edit it. Here we are. Let's grab this section and give it, here it is, a Z index of 5. Let's save and make sure that this was the reason. Okay, so now you see the cursor change to a pointer, so that works. And if I switch to light mode, it works. Our hero section and our about section. Okay, so as you see, this is a quite long video, so let's make a break now. Of course, don't forget to like the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for other videos like this one, and let's continue in the next video.